Welcome to the Slapping Me Wrestling Podcast. You already know what it is. Big, meaty men slapping meat and real wrestling talk without the nonsense. But before we get started, let me make something crystal clear. This podcast, this movement, it's just a small piece of something much bigger. We are a part of the casual wrestling community, also known as the CWC. We are a force of wrestling fans led by none other than the founder himself, newly dubbed Notorious Dirty D. And what's the mission? Simple. To squash every single one of those IWC cockroaches out there who think that they know better than the business itself. No cares given, no one's off limits, and let me be clear, I will not censor. CWC is made up of the real ones, Dirty D, Wavy D, WETOODEEP, that's me, Milwaukee Mike, Kara, Starry Night Sky, Dead Chef, T-Squire, Witters, B-Master, and all the others who are ready to stand up and fight the IWC nerds polluting the internet wrestling discussion. You want to be a part of the movement. Not only will the Junkyard Media Group Discord page be in the description, but so will the link to the Casual Wrestling Community page. And with all that being said, I hope you enjoy the show. Let's get started. Warning, the following program is designed for casual wrestling fans and is meant purely for entertainment. If you're SAWFT, proceed at your own risk. Viewer discretion is advised.
Brother, I'm going run a wild Hulk Hogan. If I get some moment, I'll make sure it's an explosion. Cause lately I've been seeing stars trying to kick out on this jaw cord. But it's no holds barred. Middle fingers like I'm Stone Cold.
What is up, everybody? It is WETOODEEP. We are back with another episode of the Slapping Me Wrestling Podcast. Let's dive on in with my opening rant. Housekeeping, as always. Links in the description. Y'all know where to find them by now. Expedia, WWE shop. Click the link. Go through it. Make your purchase. And we will automatically get a small percentage of that purchase. Thanks again for those who do that. We'll really appreciate it. But let's tune on. We got a heavy show, right? So let's run down what we got going. We're going to talk about the opening rant. The title of this podcast: Triple H cannot book. I'm going to explain to you what I mean by that. Then we're going to talk about, is there a possibility of Vince McMahon being competitive if he got back into wrestling today? I'm also going to explain to you why I no longer care about Rock versus Roman. I'll go over my thoughts from NXT from this past Tuesday. We got some more AEW drama that we need to talk about by people who aren't even in the company anymore. We'll break that down. Just like I gave my top 10 women in WWE that I would add to my roster, removing companies. We'll do my top 10 AEW women that I would add to that roster. And then we have two react to that's today. One is a fantasy booking, a post that I saw on X, and the other is a clip from Vince Russo reacting to The Rock's promo. We got a big show coming up for you. Let's go ahead and start with this opening rant. Triple H, my guy, I've been hard on you, and I've been hard on you for a reason. There's a part of me that thinks that you could do better, but people hear me complain about Triple H and his booking, and they're like, "Nah, man, you you're not seeing the big picture, or you got to understand how Triple H books, and put yourself in Triple H's position, and that's fine. All of that's fine. I understand he has to please board members, he has to please investors. There's a whole lot. I'm sure his job is hard, but here's the narrative that I want to break. There's a narrative within the WWE super fan crowd, right? So when I did that cold open for this episode, right, and I said we're coming after the IWC cockroaches, right? That's not just AEW fans. It's mostly AEW fans, if we're being honest. But it's also these WWE shills, right? That only critique like, I feel like I've been very consistent and very fair in my critique against both companies, right? If there's negatives on both, I call it out, right? Or what I would perceive as negatives, right? And so when me coming after the IWC, it's not brand related. If you're a cockroach that's a WWE nut rider, we're calling you out just the same. And there's this narrative within this this group of people that I think sort of nut hug Triple H, where his booking is vastly better than what Vince McMahon was doing, and that Triple H can do no wrong. And like, even within like the CWC, right? I think we even have disagreements on, is Triple H good or not? And in terms of booking, I'm on the outside looking in, I think, within the CWC itself, of my feeling on Triple H, right? So Dirty D, which first off, that's going to take a while to get used to calling him that, but Dirty D, he did his episode yesterday, Thursday, right? If you haven't listened to it after you're done with this episode, go check out his. Very good episode. But towards the end, he was taking, he was talking about it, and he was doing, going over some of the takes in the Discord, and mine was this exact rant that Triple H can't book, and I have some arguments for it. I believe he uses little tricks, he jingles little prizes, and he does big things, right? So for example, he uses The Rock, he uses Trish Stratus, he'll dangle like a Hell in a Cell match or something. He'll do like one or two good things, and then proceed to use that as like the heavy duty to lift the rest of the bad booking, right? He does little tricks with his booking that I said I was on the Junkyard Media group, or the Beyond the Junkyard podcast yesterday night, if you guys watched that, and I said something similar to this, prefacing this show, and I feel that with like stuff like the Elimination Chamber and Royal Rumble, that Triple H uses the position of those PLEs sort of as a crutch to get him into Mania season, because he's a lazy booker, he's not creative, right? And when you say that, even within like the CWC, like even Dirty D, he was like, no man, he plays it safe, and we disagree on. I think we disagree. And here's the cool thing about the CWC that the IWC doesn't allow. So the IWC, these cockroaches in the internet wrestling community, they don't allow for disagreement. Here in the CWC, me and Wavy D disagree all the time. Bro, we still get on this podcast, we chop it up on Tuesdays, and we have a good time, right? We disagree, we talk out where our disagreements are. We may leave that conversation still in disagreement, but I respect his opinion, he respects mine. Same thing with Dirty D, right? I think we disagree on how Triple H books. He sees Triple H as just the safe booker. There's certain people that he trusts, and maybe that's the case, but I don't necessarily think that then in that sense that being a safe booker is a good thing, because a lot of the product, if we're truly being honest with ourselves, a lot of the product is bland right now. This build to WrestleMania we're a month away, guys. Tomorrow is Elimination Chamber. It's March the 1st. We're 40 days. We're like 40 days away from WrestleMania. And we don't have a card. We don't have a mid card at all set as to what's happening at WrestleMania. There's been zero focus on getting the mid card to WrestleMania. That's not good booking. I don't care how good your main event is. The lack of interest in Triple H in booking a mid card to fill up the rest of that show is insane to me. That's not good booking. The build to this WrestleMania is so dry right now. There's nothing there. And so playing it safe is not necessarily the best way to book. But I think his reliance on bringing back someone like Trish Stratus, I love Trish Stratus. I think the older she gets, the better she looks. I don't know what she's getting into and how she's doing it. She's found the magic elixir to age backwards. But Trish Stratus is fantastic. And I get it's for a pop. But that spot in the Royal Rumble could have been used to put over and put into the mid-card title division to make it feel better. Maybe someone like a Shotzi who was backstage. Put Shotzi in a re-energized Shotzi who got that splash of momentum in NXT, could come to the main roster again at Royal Rumble and have a decent moment, right? If Nikki Bella's not being used, why put her in the Royal Rumble, right? So that's where Triple H does some of these questionable booking, to me are questionable booking things that are like yes, you're playing it safe, but you need to take some risks. But also, like, can we proceed to get WrestleMania, like you're marketing WrestleMania on the back of Jey Uso and then whatever The Rock is doing here, right? And so I just don't like the way Triple H books. I think here's my issue, right? This is a man who tells us that he books stories 6 months to a year in advance. And then we see there's no way you wrote last Friday's show, right? 6 months ago. There's no way that back in October you wrote the story the way you're having it to pan out right now. Because it's not a good story. So I am a storytelling guy, right? What are the stories in WWE right now? There are none, because he uses the crutch of Royal Rumble. The major storyline right now is, what is Cody going to choose? Is he going to sell out to The Rock? Well, as far as we know at that point, that doesn't lead to anything in Mania. So the story plots right now are being held up by these gimmick pay-per-views in Royal Rumble and Elimination Chamber, which are essentially the same PLE with a different stipulation or a different gimmick. It's the same thing. And yes, the gimmicks are props to push storylines, but you're not really pushing stories through the gimmicks. You're just sort of letting them get you to your destination, but you're not, but it's lazy. It's lazy booking. Triple H is very lazy. I think he's very uncreative. You look at the difference between the booking on the main roster and the booking on NXT, and it's vastly different. And I'm tired of this excuse that NXT has the benefit of being in the PC. They were just in Cincinnati. In 2 weeks, they'll be in New York. When there's more interest on the product and it makes business sense to take it on the road 52 weeks a year, NXT will leave Orlando. I thoroughly believe that. Right? But at this point, I don't think it makes sense to have that be a touring brand 52 weeks of the year. But there's no way. There's no way you could tell me that when you look at NXT, and that's why we're getting people who typically are just main roster viewers who are tuning into NXT the last 2 or 3 weeks and are like, man, I've been missing out because NXT is the best booked show. At times, guys, I'm not the biggest AEW fan, but if I'm being honest, Wednesday's episode of Dynamite was partially again, I half-ass watch AEW. What I mean by that is it's on the TV, but I'm playing PlayStation as well for the most part, right? And I'm listening to it, and I'll because it is a match-heavy show, I'm not the biggest fan of watching matches until pay-per-views. I'm just going to be honest with you. And so the main thing I really care about in the matches on the TV shows are what's the winner and how does it advance the storyline. I'll tell you something. Outside of some of the production issues with like them turning the camera a little bit too quickly on what's his name? Christopher Daniels still in the middle of getting himself ready for the segment by blading, which is a minor but here's the thing. It's minor, and is it going to be critiqued? Yes. And here's why. That shouldn't have happened. 2 things should have happened. Either A, you don't swap the camera to Christopher Daniels until he's ready, or B, you don't have him actually blade. Tony, you can't afford prop blood. You can't afford prop blood where you could just throw it on him and he doesn't have to actually blade. So when you do turn the camera, he's not there physically punching himself, blading. That's crazy. So, see, that's right. So outside of those minor things, I thought Wednesday's episode of Dynamite was actually pretty interesting. I did. I think MJF is back. Whatever I didn't like about MJF, and let me tell you what it was. He was battling the homeless shelter, or not homeless, the elderly shelter, the nursing home. He was doing battles with Dustin Rhodes and Jeff Jarrett when he should be in the type of thing he's doing now. Where, look, as much as I don't like Hangman Page, here's what I don't like about him. I think he's a good performer. I don't like his gimmick. He pretends to be a cowboy. Dude's never seen, or at least his character comes off like super metrosexual. Like I've never seen dirt in my life. And to the point to where he's driving an electric vehicle with the cowboy horns on the top of it. Bro, if you ever did that on a farm, if you pulled up in Texas with an electric pickup truck with the cowboy horns on the front of it, you'd probably be told to go back home. That's crazy. It's crazy. And I get it there in California, yeah, there's probably some regulations or whatever. But you don't even need to show that on screen. It really just makes him come off. The gimmick seem a little bit less intimidating, because the whole idea of being a cowboy is like you're a danger to the rest of the roster, because cowboys are tough, right? They're tough. They get in fights, right? And he doesn't scream that in presentation wise. Just right. As much as I don't like Hangman, he's a great performer. And this Hangman MJF feud is going to be good. And MJF is back in a position where I felt like MJF was trying too hard to please, like trying to be a heel, or excuse me, trying to be a face, but then also like I think he was trying too hard to use some of his, and I did hear something, and I agree with this, that AEW fans love the no words. I think I heard this from Jim Cornette, that AEW fans love the no words. Where I could say a couple things, I can have a really bad promo, but if I start using a couple cuss words in my promo, I'll get a pop at least. But let me be honest with you. The Rock relies on that as well. The Rock relies on that same promo style right now, right? But as much as I hate on or shit on AEW, because I don't want to get my words twisted. I don't hate AEW. I'm not the biggest fan of the product, but the last few weeks I've been mildly entertained by it. And so I feel like Dynamite was better than last week's SmackDown, and that's a problem to me. And because everyone wants to say Triple H is very good at booking, but guys, we're 40, 50 days away from WrestleMania, and we have 2 matches booked. After tomorrow, we'll have 4 with, right? And I understand you're going to use the chamber logically to build the rest of your card. So you'll probably get a Priest McIntyre setup, Cena Logan Paul setup. If Roman does get involved in this in some way to set up a match with Seth, you'll get that set up. But there's no reason why we should be in March without a WrestleMania card. Right? And so Triple H, we got to do better. And I want to, so everyone, I made this thing, like, I can't remember a single feud outside of like that was good, a single thing that Triple H did that was creative and good in the last 365 days, because I truly believe Triple H did not fully have complete control of creative until the build up to last year's WrestleMania, because I don't believe he truly was, like, when Vince first retired, right? He was back within 6 months. And then the sale of the company happened leading into WrestleMania 39, right? And all of that was taking place. And I don't truly believe it was until the build up to WrestleMania, for WrestleMania 40, that Triple H truly started his era, right? And so within the last 365 days, from Royal Rumble, from Royal Rumble last year, 2024, till now, present time, in that amount of time, since Triple H has been, what I would say, completely in charge of creative, with no Vince influence, and like getting all the Vince guys like Kevin Dunn out of the inner circle, right? Triple H fully over. It's his era, starting with the Royal Rumble leading into last year's WrestleMania. In the last 365-ish days since that time, can you name one thing other than Drew and Punk that was creative, never went stale, right? Because everyone will point to Liv and Rhea, but guys, that got stale pretty quick, didn't it? That got like the way they booked Rhea made that feud just not, because either, I don't know, that Liv is great, Rhea's great, but that feud just got stale, right? Right? You can't say the bloodline stuff, because that's Vince McMahon's create. You can't give Triple H credit for that. Since he's taken credit of it, what has he done? I don't think he's made anything creative or better with the bloodline story. In fact, I think he's gotten it to the point to where it has to dissolve now, which is crazy, because this could have been a story this could have been like your Days of Our Lives soap opera story that goes on for 30 years. With 4,000 cast changes over decades, because you could replace Samoans. There's a lot of them in the wrestling industry, all connected back to probably Rikishi. Every time I turn around, Rikishi's got another son that's popping up on the wrestling scene. So yeah, can you name one thing? If you look at last year's WrestleMania 40, was it good in the moment? Sure. But in hindsight, look back at it. Look at the clusterfuck of a booking decision it was to get Seth Rollins involved in that entire story. That entire thing, that build, all of it. Was it cool in the moment? Sure. But when we look back in hindsight and we look back at the product we got, nothing out of WrestleMania. Look at the WrestleMania 40 card. Bobby Lashley's no longer in the company. The tag division is abysmally being booked right now. We had this big tag ladder match, and we got 2 new champions, and the tag division felt like it was going to be used, and then nothing came of it. You have a women's division that outside of Liv, Rhea, and Nia Jax hardly ever see get used properly. I think they're doing good things with Bianca and Jade, but that's a different thing, right? So without Liv, Rhea, Nia Jax, Bianca, or Jade Cargill, and in association Naomi, the rest of the women's roster hardly. You add 2 new women's titles, which are your little trinkets that he likes to bring out. He says, "Oh, look at these new shiny toys. Look at what we're doing so good. Look at these shiny toys." But then you don't do nothing with it. You got Lyra Valkyria wrestling on Main Event, sitting in the crowd on Monday Night Raw. She just finally defended her belt for the first time after winning it, at a month ago. So I don't understand why we sit here and try to nut hug Triple H. It's okay to call him out and say he's not a good booker because he can't book. And I don't think it's him playing it safe. I think that, to me, I'll be honest with you, to me that feels like an excuse trying to hold out hope that Triple H could turn the ship around. And I'm not 100% certain that with him in charge, and here's the thing, I knew this would happen because this is what happened with Black and Gold NXT. Triple H cannot book the in-between. He books PLEs. At the time when he was in NXT Black and Gold, they were takeovers, right? He books those fantastic, like the individual event with the big moments and the big matches and everything is good, right? But the in-betweens, right? The week-to-week television that tells the story as to why we want to watch that product. Like, you could get away with it in NXT because at the time you had to want to watch NXT. It wasn't on television. It was on the WWE network. Such a niche product. It was essentially like just WWE's indie division, right? It was essentially just like the independent division of WWE, right? It was all the new signees and it was developmental, right? And so you could get away with not really booking intricate storylines during Black and Gold, right? Because it wasn't on TV. You had maybe like 100, 200,000 people watching it on the network. But then the takeover events would happen and you would present these live, and now more people are watching and you book really good events. That's fine. But this is how Triple H books. He's not good at the he's not good at the week to week. He has, and we've said this, right? He books from Mania to SummerSlam, and by book, what I mean by that is he doesn't book the week to week from Mania to SummerSlam. He basically writes the outline from Mania to SummerSlam and where he wants the stories to go, and then we just got to figure that shit out on a week to week basis, right? And so to me, I don't know what more I could say to say. I think he falls into this thing where he relies too much on, we try to get Gunther over, and rather than put in some creativity at getting Gunther over, we're gonna have him do a promo against Bret Hart or against or have Goldberg come in and have him attack Goldberg verbally, right? 2 guys that the wrestling universe probably doesn't care about in the slightest. And you're going to have Gunther attack them. I don't think it works, right? But then the bigger thing is like, what are we doing with we all want to, or at least I want a Charlotte Tiffany, but I didn't want sympathetic Tiffany because she doesn't deserve sympathy. She should be the bad bitch that, look at me, in 2.5 years I got into the company, I made it on NXT, I won the NXT Women's Champion, I beat some of the best, and now look at me, I'm on the main roster as Women's Champion. Not over here having Charlotte one up her every single week, and then Tiffany begging for sympathy with the crowd. That's not the type of babyface she is. It's this copy paste stuff that Triple H does with his characters because it's the Jey Uso treatment. It's that copy paste thing to me that, like, bro, this is lazy. Right? I catch myself sometimes watching Raw and SmackDown being like, this is really lazy how they're booking this. Or then on the other side, in the areas, especially around like Cody Rhodes in the main event of WrestleMania the last 2 years, he tries to be the guy that's smarter than the smart marks, who he wants to have a big surprise. And so to do that, to try to sort of surprise us all, he entangles this convoluted story where there's supposed to be some big ending, and it just makes zero sense when in logic and rationale. But it's so that he could stay one step ahead and say, look, I tricked you, I surprised you guys. When there was a much easier story that you could have told that we would have appreciated and would have watched and cheered for, and didn't need to be twisted into a pretzel to get the big surprise. Right? And so I think he wants to be like, oh, I'm smarter than the fans in my booking. And to me, it just doesn't come off all that good, in my opinion, on some of the things, right? So, like, instead of just doing Rock Roman, we had or instead of just finishing the story, because I'll be honest with you, Rock Roman's one of those things I think you can wait on, but the more you tease it and the less you give it to me. So here's the thing, like, if you didn't tease Rock Roman at all last year, I'm not complaining about it. Right? So, but there's that. I don't know how much more I could say on Triple H on this segment, right? But let's swap hands, because he's being compared to Vince McMahon. Well, Vince McMahon apparently is in talks. Apparently, a lot of his lawsuits are getting cleared, which is a different topic for a totally different show, not for me to talk about, because I'm not an expert in that field. But there's rumors being along that he's hiring some of his former, production, the Kevin Dunns of the world, right? And that he's trying to get a TV deal with Fox to get a new wrestling company on TV. So my question is could Vince McMahon take a startup company and immediately become competitive in the wrestling universe that we have right now? And I'm going to tell you, it depends on the roster. Because my fear is, like, I think Brock Lesnar would immediately sign with him. I think there's a position where Brock Lesnar would come in, do a couple big events, and allow Vince to sort of build a roster around him, right? I think Brock Lesnar would sign with that company. I think there's a world where I've seen the name like Bobby Lashley thrown around. I don't think Bobby Lashley's getting money thrown at him right now, and he's champion. I don't think Lashley will leave AEW, but I think there's a world where you could get a Brock Lesnar, you could get a a decent roster. I see someone like a Baron Corbin who, right, signing with Vince McMahon. Vince really did do a very good job at pushing Baron Corbin. For the most, what happened was that Baron was getting that push, and then he did something stupid, and Vince doesn't play that game, and so he then that's what led to the spiral of Baron Corbin. But I think with the whole new company, when you need to build a roster, a Brock Lesnar, a Baron Corbin, a Jinder Mahal, some of these big giants that have been cut, that are working the indies. I could even see a situation where someone like Matt Cardona shows up. In that situation, I could see something where you can get a decent roster with Vince McMahon in this new company, and they could put it on TV. I can see it being competitive. I don't think it will. I don't think it will top WWE, but I could see it being one of these like shows that you're like, oh, Vince's show is on. I like this. So me and Wavy D, I've talked about this with him a couple times, and he's like, "Yeah, I watched the first episode," and I think that'll be the sort of attitude that everyone has with it. Is like, I'll check it out and see if I like it. But I thoroughly think this could work. I do. And I think it would be far closer competition with WWE than AEW is. And not necessarily in ratings, but I mean in like the product itself. And so I'm even thinking of like in terms of like the women's division. How I'm just trying to, because my issue is like, who are the Vince guys, and like I can't imagine that a lot of the WWE roster would leave to go work for Vince. And so he would need some, I don't even know like who would be considered free agents, who he would even be looking to get signed to that type of company. To me, you put Brock Lesnar on a poster and people are going to watch. That's just how I view it. And so yeah, I think it would be interesting. So my answer to would I watch it would I'd have that same. I'll check out the first few episodes. I'm not just going to be like, oh, I'm going to watch one episode. I'll have to watch like 2 or 3, maybe 4 before I judge it on whether I'll continue watching it. But yeah, I think there's a realistic chance where Vince McMahon got back into wrestling that he could be competitive, right, in the industry today, which would be interesting because imagine Vince McMahon taking a startup company with, I mean, he has money now. Like he sold WWE for billions of dollars. He has money. So like he could start this thing up with I believe a decent sized roster. And I mean, you don't need 100 people, but if he brings in like a 50-person roster, men, women, tag teams, and puts on a decent product, I think people will tune in to watch it. And then but imagine like Vince McMahon taking this startup company and like imagine him being so good. Like I think there's a world where it's so good that people stop watching WWE, especially like the older fans who liked Vince's booking, who might turn back to Vince. And that's crazy. That might be that's why I find that this would be more competitive towards WWE, because there are a lot of older nostalgic fans who, if Vince McMahon brought back a TV 14 sort of like Attitude Era product, there's a world that I believe Vince McMahon, especially with him not having to, he could be a private company again, so he doesn't have to answer to stockholders and all that. Imagine how wild that show would be. Like because I could see a genuine world where like this first debut episode, right? My issue is I find myself believing that he'd bring in like someone like Trump on the show, and then it would feel like a grift to me, right? No matter how you feel politically, that would be a grift, and it would be aimed towards a certain market, and then that alienates the rest of the main wrestling fans, right? So I don't know. I would have to check it out. It would depend on what the product Vince puts on TV, but I think he could be. The question is, could he be competitive? And I think he could, in today's world. All right, so let me tell you why I no longer care about Rock versus Roman. So the deadline that I've set for this match needs to be set is tomorrow. It is Elimination Chamber. At the end of Elimination Chamber, if the match Rock versus Roman is not on the card, which I don't believe it will be, I believe we're getting Seth versus Roman. But if Rock versus Roman is not on the Mania card by tomorrow, I don't ever want to see the match. And even at this current point, I don't really care about the match. And let me explain to you why. What was the big hype around Roman Reigns versus The Rock? It was who's in charge of, who's really the alpha Samoan in the family, right? Is it Roman Reigns or is it The Rock? And the match was supposed to be for like the head of the table, right? And so at this point, the reason that match felt so big is because at that point, Roman Reigns hadn't lost a match. Like at this point last year, right? At this point last year, leading into WrestleMania, Roman Reigns hadn't lost a match, a singles match, hadn't been pinned in a singles match for 1,300 days. It was like 2019, right? And so that was what was the big thing to me, that this is long title reign versus big mega superstar, right? There were marketing points that you can get. It was who's truly involved in who's truly at the top of the tribe. Who's the actual tribal chief? Who sits actually at the head of the table? Now the issue is when you have Roman Reigns lose and you end a 1,300 plus day streak in which you never lose, and then you snap that, you immediately take away the most marketable part of Roman Reigns. And since he's lost in the last 365 days, or at this point it's like 300 days. In like the 300 days since Roman Reigns has lost that title, not only did we go like 5 months without seeing him, he's been getting the shit beat out of him by Solo Sikoa, to the point that he had to go recruit the guy who beat him to be in a match with him. And then he had to go try to save the family. Right? What made that match so interesting is the dynamic of Rock versus Roman. With Roman, is the tribe Roman claims to be the chief of going to stand behind him, or are they going to stand behind The Rock in a turn on Roman? Right? There's nothing plot-wise that makes Rock versus Roman right now at all of any importance. No one actually wants to see The Rock in the ring. No one. He's 50 plus years old. He moves stiff, and it wouldn't be a good match. No one actually wants to see him in the ring. What we wanted to see, though, was the tension, the drama of who's actually in charge of the tribe. And at this point, Roman, how many times do we got to point out? Roman is a chief with no tribe. Jimmy, Jay, Solo, the rest of the bloodline, none of them are behind him. So there's nothing you're really fighting for. So that's why this match means absolutely nothing anymore. It had to happen last year. It had to happen while he had a tribe with him. It had to happen when there was some stakes to the match for Roman Reigns. There's no stakes for Roman Reigns right now. The match I really want to see is Jacob versus Roman, because I think that could be like the battle for the future of the tribe. The Rock is not going to come in and be like the future tribal chief. I just at this point in time, after being jerked around for this through WrestleMania 39, through WrestleMania 40, and now for the follow-up from 40 into 41, being jerked around for the third straight year, I just don't see the purpose of the match. Neither of the two are willing to commit to being here for 3 straight months to convince me on why this story, and so I just don't want to see it. There's no logical plot point to get to that at this point. I think there are other stories that Roman can be in that make more logical sense than just right. And I don't want, again, if we're going to do this match, no one wants to see the match for the match. They wanted the match for the story and what it represents. And Roman doesn't have that character behind him anymore. He doesn't. So I don't see the appeal of the match anymore. Look, if the match got made, say next year or the year after, right, at some point in the future, and they put it on paper and they have the posters printed, Roman Reigns versus The Rock, would people be interested? Sure. But a lot of those people who would be interested are interested for 2 reasons: nostalgia, or they've bought into the lie that you have to think. Like, here's the reality of the fact here. Even as far back as like WrestleMania 39, I've never really said, "Oh, I really want to see these two wrestle." What I wanted to see was the story around the match, and all of those plot points have been destroyed. All of those plot points have been destroyed. That would make the story around the match feel very good, because the match itself is not going to be good. There's a reason, like, The Rock hasn't wrestled a singles match since he's been back in WWE. And there's a reason for it. He's old, he's rusty, he doesn't move the same. He's stiff, and he can't go in a singles match, right? You put him in a tag match for a reason. You have him do little tiny bumps for a reason. So yeah, there's zero interest for me on this match. Even if they announce it at Elimination Chamber tomorrow, like, even if they did, like, I'm not fully convinced that I would care all that much about the actual match. It's the aura around the match. But even then, I don't feel that aura anymore, because Roman's no longer on a 1,300-day title reign, where he's at where he has a tribe that he's leading, and The Rock just doesn't feel like a credible threat to Roman anymore, because Roman doesn't feel like a threat to anyone. I don't see the reason for this match anymore. I'm at this point. I'm actually going to go ahead and do this. I'm closing the window right now on this episode of my care for this match. There is zero reason to do Rock versus Roman at this point. I don't even care about it. And if it happens, it happens, and I'll watch it, and I'll probably, they'll get it right. But this was supposed to be like that Hogan Rock match, like passing of the one generation to the next, right? 2 generations of legends, and it can still be 2 generations of legends, but, like, I don't know, Roman Reigns just doesn't feel the same when he's on screen. He just doesn't feel the same. He's lost what I think made him an attraction to me. He just feels like another one of the boys now, because he doesn't have and I know you guys hated the long title run, but that made him unique and made him a commodity. And now he just sort of comes in, and I don't know, he just feels different. There's another Samoan right now in the company that I would rather cheer for. and that's Jacob Fatu. I think we've moved this story to the point to where like Jacob Fatu has to be the center of the if we continue the bloodline story, which is why to me Roman beating Solo makes absolutely no sense. There's no payoff to that story that we've gotten. Solo should have retained the Ulafala and had Jacob turn on him. And so Jacob versus Solo, when it happens at Mania, could be for the Ulafala, who's in charge of the new bloodline. That's how, again, it's lazy booking that Triple H does. He relies on certain big events, and then he relies on the people. Is it safe? Sure. But Jacob is, I think you can trust Jacob to get this over. I think you can trust Solo. I do. And so, yeah, for the fact that I don't think there's a storyline reason why The Rock and Roman, and I know everyone's like, oh, well, you can create one real quick. But guys, I need more than a real quick build. Because the build for Rock versus Roman was 4 years in the making in terms of Roman's been claiming to be the top seat in the family, in the tribe of Samoans for 4 years before The Rock showed up and said, I think I'm going to take a seat at the head of the table. Right? And there was the build. You had 4 years of Roman. You've been claiming to be the top dog. Like Rock could have come in and said Roman, right? But Triple H in his booking, he needed to finish Cody Rhodes' story. He couldn't have one more year. Like, because this is what should have happened, right? This is what should have happened. We should have had Rock Roman last year in place of Rock Cody. Had Cody Rhodes get beaten somewhere, have him have another year to build up, where he's losing opportunity after opportunity after opportunity to win this title. Major babyface status. Roman beats Rock. He's truly like unbeatable, right? Because Rock could have come in not as a heel, but as your babyface. Oh, Roman, man, you've been saying you've been sitting at the throne of my family, the family that I've been carrying on my back through making all of these movies, that I've been supporting, and that you think you're the tribal chief here, Roman? No, I'm the true tribal chief. And then you get the match, and you get Roman to win, and he becomes the ultimate tribal chief. You could call him like the I don't know. He wins. He gets like a crown put on his head or something stupid, right? I know that's what the Ulafala is supposed to symbolize, but right. But then Roman's now at this point heading into 41, 5 years as champion, unbeatable. And then you have Cody come in on a 2-year rebuild from 39, and you could do Roman Cody at 41. And have Cody finish the story there. And now he beats an even bigger Goliath. And he could do it clean. And he didn't need all the assistance. Does anyone else feel like Cody Rhodes' title run just sort of feels like given to him? Right? Because of all the assistance and all the stupidness that got convoluted in that booking. Right? I don't know. I'm not interested in this match whatsoever. All right, we'll move on. We gotta let's talk about NXT for a minute. This last episode. So Stephanie Vaquer, La Primera, my favorite wrestler on the planet right now. Stephanie Vaquer takes on Karmen Petrovic for the Women's North American Championship. Very, very decent match. And so let me tell you something. This has been a week of wardrobe malfunctions in the women's division. Tiffany Stratton had her titty fall out of her shirt during that match last Friday. And then Tuesday we had two of them. One was Karmen Petrovic. Apparently something was falling out. And Jordan Grace when she was taking Roxanne Perez out the ring, had a titty fall out of her shirt. Some of y'all need to know that there's certain clothes you can't do brawls in. Anyway, but this was a very good match. Very good. Karmen's gotten very good. and I think there's a future for her. But they wanted to do champion versus champion, which is ultimately what we're getting. Julia versus Stephanie. Now, I'm not 100% certain. This is where I'm going to knock Chef Michaels for a minute. I don't know if I like champion versus champion. I don't like the idea of having a double champion. I think it hinders that women's division. And so I don't think the champion versus champion match ends in a finish. I'm just going to be honest. I think it ends in DQ with someone attacking someone. There's also the rumor going around that it's champion versus champion because Julia is hurt. Which, if that's true, that's absolutely gut-wrenching. But if that's the case, just have her vacate the title and we can do a tournament leading into Stand and Deliver to crown a champion. I think that would be just the easiest way to book that. But who knows, right? But again, the match itself, very good to start the show. Some other key points. Moose versus Lexus King was very good. Very good. No Quarter Catch Crew versus the Hardys was a decent match. That Hardys pop was big. Let me tell you something. Miles Bourne plays this gimmick that they got him in. First off, dude looks just like Randy Orton. Bro looks just like young Randy Orton. I've been saying that for a couple months now. Since he's really signed with the company, which I think have been about a year at this point. Right? But so for those who don't know, Miles Bourne is deaf. And so he actually made a tweet the other day that said, "No, I'm not Randy Orton. He hears voices and I can't hear shit." And that made me pop so loud when I saw that. But what Vic Joseph said on TV when the Hardys came out, the Hardys pop is so loud even Miles Bourne can hear it. Bro, Vic Joseph, you ain't supposed to be a savage, big dog. That's supposed to be Corey Graves. When Corey Graves tells you that that's too much, right? I was waiting for a Booker T. Nah, don't tell me you just said that. Right, bro. That was crazy. This match was good, though. I'm really loving No Quarter Catch Crew. As much as I didn't like that Gulak got released for what, I don't know even what the situation is with Gulak at the moment and what that update is, but Gulak just seemed kind of corny to me as the leader of this. I like No Quarter Catch Crew. Tavian Heights is good. Really like Tavian Heights. Really like Miles Bourne. Them as a tag team. Telling you, man, it's good. They're good down there, right? But let's talk about two big things here as we end this. So first is Ricky Saints. We got a star in the making, big boy. And AEW needs to be very worrisome. Here's why. NXT fans tend to be a little bit less tribalistic. They tend to be the same fan base that watches AEW. So, when you get Tony fumbled during Ricky Saints' match, first off, as a performer, I couldn't just keep in character during this. Because if I heard that and I'm Ricky Saints, and I'm hearing Tony fumbled, I'm playing into that shit. And I'm laughing my ass off at least, right? But this dude is a star. Not only on the mic, bro's a little small. He's 200 pounds. He's a little small. But he looks very good. He had a little moment where he stumbled on his finisher. But I forgot who said it. It may have been a tweet I saw or something. It's going to take a little while to get the AEW out of this man. He's not going to be perfect on the first match, right? But I like that they played it safe with him in terms of, and by playing it safe, I mean they put him in a tag match with people he had chemistry with, right? And so I'm assuming it's going to be Ricky Saints. First off, his music, I know a lot of people are complaining, they stole his AEW. Guys, here's the problem. You can't get upset when gimmicks or Cody Rhodes was the American Nightmare in AEW, they still no, you didn't copyright it. Tony Khan needs to learn to copyright his gimmicks. If he doesn't want WWE to use, Jade Cargill's the same, well, copyright it, and then she can't be the same. Here's the thing: is he couldn't copyright it because these stars, like Cody and at least Cody and Jade, they copyrighted their own stuff, right? That's why Vince McMahon ran business and why WWE currently runs business the way it runs, because they want to own their creative content, their creative property, right? Ricky Saints is a star, though. I said it on the first promo that I thought he was going to be a star in NXT, but then we see him in the ring. Yeah, he's got that it factor. He's got it, and I know he's a little bit up there in age. He's in his 30s. So he's not going to be like, I don't ever think his ceiling's going to be like world champion unless he can get like a Jey Uso type push. But I think his ceiling is like very high mid-carder on the main roster. Like in IC title, US title pictures, but he's a star. There have been stars. Jake the Snake was never that I can remember like in the main title picture ever. He was a lifer on the mid-card, but he's still very remembered. Hacksaw Jim Duggan, same thing. Even someone like Roddy Piper, I don't think he was ever like major main event picture. Some of the better known wrestlers have been lifers on the mid-card title scene or the tag team title scene, right? So, yeah, I Ricky Saints, he's good, right? But let's talk about Roadblock. Roadblock is in 2 weeks, on Tuesday. NXT Roadblock is on March 11th, which is 2 weeks. It's a Tuesday, like I just said. So I'm gonna have a thing here. So in the CWC, as you guys know, me and Wavy do a Tuesday show during NXT. We're recording during NXT. So the CWC Discord is talking about it. So I have my phone on Do Not Disturb during that. And during Tuesday's episode, we're getting a lot more involvement in our Discord watching NXT, which makes me super happy because it's my favorite show. And so it was asked, so Roadblock's a very big event. It's basically a PLE on TV, right? Live from the theater at Madison Square Garden. And it's going to be a big night. It's going to be a big night. We got Oba Femi versus Moose, the Hardys versus Fraxium, Julia versus Stephanie Vaquer. So far, those are the matches. And so the update that I want to give is March 11th, there will not be an episode of Slap and Meat Wrestling podcast. We're gonna do a live NXT watch along in the CWC, and by live I mean you got to be in the Discord, and we're gonna be like just chatting, like the chat is gonna be live, right? And so that I don't miss that, and I do want to participate in that. There will be no episode on March the 11th for the Slap and Meat Wrestling podcast. There'll only be one episode that week on that Friday. Just so you guys know that, participate in that NXT. Go watch NXT if you haven't, and so that's what's going to happen there. All right, let's move on here, because React to that is going to take some time here. Actually, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but apparently Ryan Nemeth is suing AEW and CM Punk. I don't understand what's going on here. Ryan Nemeth, when was the last time you like I don't know. I don't get it. I think it's stupid. Like I don't know. Like Ryan, is this because he pulled you? I don't know where this is gonna go. I think it's stupid what happens here. Ryan Nemeth will literally only be known as Dolph Ziggler's brother. So I think it's stupid, this whole situation, to be honest with you. But like, have you read the lawsuit? He's basically saying that CM Punk was a bully, that Tony Khan knew he was a bully but didn't do anything about him, and then because CM Punk bullied Ryan Nemeth and cost him his career by pulling him off of an episode of Collision, when his contract ended, Tony Khan didn't re-sign Ryan Nemeth. Bro, just get over it. You're like actually pretty good on TNA right now. Like, what are we doing? It's crazy. It's crazy to me. Anyway, let's move on. So last week I did 10 women in WWE that I would put on if I was starting a promotion that I would put on my women's roster. We're going to expand that from 10 women from WWE. We're going to add 10 more, but these are from AEW. So last week with the WWE women, I had like categories and I don't have categories. These are just 10 women that I would just add to the roster. More than likely would start in the mid card because I already have my WWE women there, but you know how it is, right? So this woman, so the first woman that I'm going to talk about is the most logical answer and has to be on this list, and that's Britt Baker. Britt Baker will be on my roster, right? Without a doubt. And she may be the like already in the main event picture because it's Britt Baker and she's that good, right? The rest of this, the other 9, probably like mid card, up lower main event picture, right? But so let's talk about some of these, right? Harley Cameron is on my list. Harley Cameron has an it factor that I don't think AEW fans recognize. Just the ability to be entertaining and literally everything she does is great, right? She's sort of like that Maxine Dupree type character to me. Not the greatest in the ring, still super green, but super entertaining and good to look at, right? Next on the list is Mariah May. She's really bumped her stock up with me over the last couple years. Like I've known about Mariah May because she would, I think she was part of Shimmer or something like that in Japan. And in doing that, to get herself over, like she would share pictures, like bikini photos all the time. Like, and those would pop up on the algorithm, right? So I knew of Mariah May, didn't know how good of a wrestler she was. But, good for her. She would definitely be on my roster. I think she's young, she's talented, she's good. She has all the things that you need for a women's roster. Kris Statlander would be on my roster. I just like Kris Statlander. It's literally the only reason I put her here. I think she'd be a powerhouse, right? Speaking of powerhouses, I'd put Megan Bayne on my roster. I would just make sure she knows how to, play a heel character. Now, Julia Hart. I'm looking for some younger talent, right? So Julia Hart is here. So maybe the biggest surprise on my list is Leila Grey. And I like Leila Grey from her OVW days. I watched the OVW documentary on, I believe it's Netflix. And she was part of that, and I really enjoyed her character on that show. Leila Grey would be on my roster. Thunder Rosa, which is crazy because 2-3 years ago, I wouldn't have picked Thunder Rosa because I wasn't the biggest fan of her. I thought, right? But she's really earned a spot on this roster for me. Willow Nightengale, and then the last one would be Queen Aminata. Chocolate, honey, beautiful. That's literally it. She's beautiful. She can wrestle, but like she's on the roster because she like because there's probably better wrestlers I could have put on the roster, but Queen Aminata, yeah, y'all get what I'm saying. Y'all get what I'm saying. Anyway, let's go to react to that. I've been talking for a while here. Let's go to react to that. So the first part of this is a fantasy booking tweet that I saw from @OneTrueMav. That breaks up in his fantasy booking on how this Cody Rock situation can end up. Cody refuses I'm going to read it for you. So, quote, Cody refuses the offer, CM Punk wins the chamber. Rock tries to steal the Mania main event like it's 2013 to teach Cody a lesson. CM Punk uses his favor to get Roman to take care of Rock. Roman confronts Rock in his thirst for power. The power ties into the Ulafala in the head of the family. Roman versus Rock for the Ulafala at WrestleMania Cinema. So here's my, when I first saw this, 100% behind it. 100%. In fact, if they did this tomorrow night, I would open back my window and I would extend, but you would have to clearly show me this was the direction you're doing, right? Because this would take some time. But I think in a month you could tell this story and it would work. So you know how I said there's no narrative direction? I knew I was going to talk about this. This is the only narrative direction you could go to get me to care about Rock versus Roman, is for Roman to come out and be like, bruh, Rocky, right? But I don't think this is happening. I don't think this is definitely just fantasy booking. I'm more inclined to believe that the favor that Roman is going to use is how Wavy D set it up on Tuesday and how I set it up yesterday using Wavy D's setup. I'm convinced Wavy D convinced me on the spot Tuesday that this is what's happening. That Roman is taking Roman's favor for CM Punk. That favor is Roman attacking Seth in the chamber to let CM Punk win. And then that sets up Roman versus Seth at Mania. I think that's where we're headed. And I think that, right, so as much as I love One True Mavs fantasy booking here, this would be the only way to get me back interested in this story. But I don't think that's the path we're headed. I think we're going Roman Seth at Mania, which to me is the better match right now because there's at least some storyline being built for it, right? But the last thing I want to do here, the last thing I want to talk about is this clip from Vince Russo's podcast breaking down, I believe it's The Rock's promo. Yeah, The Rock's promo from last Friday. Now, I'm going to play the whole clip. The clip's about 14 minutes, so stick with me here. And I'm going to add my commentary at the end. So to set it up so you guys know who's on the screen here, you got Vince Russo. He's going to be in the upper left corner. You got a guy named Ben Hameen. I believe he used to be a pro wrestler on the Indies, but he's one of Vince's friends. Been on his show for a while. He's going to be on the upper right corner. He's going to disappear. I think he gets a phone call halfway through the video, but he's going to disappear at some point. And then the guy on the bottom at the start is Stevie Richards. The main guys who talk, though, are Vince and Stevie Richards. Ben Hameen gets like 2 minutes of talking in this clip that I can remember before he has to leave, and it doesn't really add anything at the end. But with that being said, I got a 14-minute clip here. Y'all, I know it's long, and I know it's been a long episode, but I want to show the whole context of the clip. And so with that, here's that. All credit to Vince Russo, not claiming credit for this content, but there you go.
Russo'sBrand.com, where the pros are the pros. You know, sometimes I feel a little bad because I'm constantly piling on Triple H, and now I'm going to be piling on Road Dogg because the writing of these shows suck. And I worked with these guys, and these guys were friends at the time. And, you know, sometimes I feel bad, but, you know, then I'm sitting there thinking, Ben, if I went out on this wrestling show and had a wrestling match every single week, how would those two guys critique my wrestling match? So it's no different, bro. Me being a full-time wrestler on the roster is the equivalent of you guys being full-time writers. So I can imagine what you guys would be saying about me if I was going out there every week trying to be a wrestler like you're trying to be television writers. And case in point, Ben and Stevie, if this freaking Rock, my soul, I want you bigger than the Rock, if this isn't the biggest cluster I've ever seen in my life, where nobody knows how to write anything that makes any sense. The problem is, and I'm going to let you guys tear this apart, I want to remind everybody, because here's what they're doing. They are repeating the corporate champion angle. That's the story they're trying to tell. So it's the usual suspects. Oh my God, who's gonna turn heel and be the corporate champion? Is it gonna be Cody? Is it gonna be Punk? Is it gonna be Seth Rollins? Who's it gonna be? Who's it gonna be? That's the story they're trying to tell. Here's what people forgot. Okay. The reason Vince McMahon wanted to oust Stone Cold Steve Austin was because Vince felt that Austin was an embarrassment to him and the company, and he did not want Austin representing his company with the flipping the birds, the cursing, the beer drinking. That Vince did not want Austin representing his company. So he was constantly trying to get the belt off of Austin. Okay, let's fast forward to SmackDown, shall we? We got Rock in the ring. First of all, Stevie, he's talking about his Disney movie. Oh, okay, bro. So you're a heel and you're Vince McMahon and you're making Disney movies. So that right there is like, huh? Then, Ben, he goes on to tell Cody, listen to the people. They love you. Bro, even I have said it, and I am not a fan of Cody Rhodes. Bro, he is the perfect person to lead that company. This is a guy that dresses like a star. This is a guy that signs every autograph. This is a guy that does the Make-A-Wish. Like, this is the kind of guy you want representing your company. So we got Rock, who I guess is a heel, making Disney movies, telling Cody Rhodes how much the people love him, but Rock wants to make Cody Rhodes the evil emperor. Bro, I'm sorry, Ben, but you've got to explain that a little bit more to me, because that makes absolutely zero sense.
I was just hoping for a bigger botch on with the lisp on Cincinnati. I mean, that's what I was looking for. Rock doesn't want to mess up his money, so he plays babyface for that type of stuff. And the fact of this is brilliant booking era, game era, Road Dog era. We're announcing Rock 36 hours before we go live. That is a desperation call on a terrible build to WrestleMania to try and get people to tune in so you can save face with USA Network when you turn in a 1.4 and you're like, oh, what are you going to do? Why don't we have stars? Why don't we have stars? I'll get the Rock. We'll get the Rock here in 36 hours. Well, there was no build. There was no billboard from the week before to get people to tune in, to get buzz going. So right there, you failed. So how do you expect them to? We write this show a year in advance, and we're just going back and forth with these pleasantries. Well, I'm glad we're friends now. I can say your wife's name and your little girl's name, and our moms are friends. It's just like, where are we even going with any of this whatsoever? You were smashing his head into the side of a van trying to kill him, and that was the heat. Now and this is where theory time comes in, and we're mentioning Ari Emanuel. I want to take your soul, all very Hollywood-esque, like temptations of buttering the guy right up. And then on the next show on Raw, CM Punk says right to the guy's face, I am Satan. These are interesting concepts when you in 1 week of shows, when you're trying to soul suck, you're trying to Rock putting even over his own movie, you could say, hey, I'm tapped into the kid demographic, and isn't that a weird part of this Hollywood as well? You know, and Cody being coy and talking slow, and this is we can stretch to fill 3 hours is brutal, dude. Like these opening monologues of just putting each other over. We have no show don't tell. Like on both shows, there's so much recap and plot in the monologues, as opposed to going. And I was angry, like even Gunther saying, I know I'm jumping around, like this is just a point. I was like, I saw you doing a TikTok dance backstage and making a fool of yourself. Don't tell me that. Show me that. Show Gunther's disgust where he's walking in and they're over there trying to get over, and he just looks at him and is, you know what I mean? That then at least we're in on it, but you're just talking in these things that are plot instead of showing it. And this promo with Rock and him was no different, and leaves you scratching your head going, we didn't see a friendship budding between them. We didn't get to see any reasons why they would have that mutual respect. It's just, we're over, guys, and you're the chosen one. And Ari Emanuel and the rest of the Hollywood elite that run everything, we're going to mention them too. Well, in any scene, in an improv scene, if you reference a character that's not on scene, that character better show up in the storyline. So Ari Emanuel better have a fucking part to play in this. Otherwise, we're just doing Hollywood stroke Satanism to some super elite. It's very strange to me, dude, of what's going on there.
And Stevie, one of the things I'm talking about, then I want to hear your take on this. One of the things I'm talking about that Vince would never do is, my God, Stevie, if they aren't 1,000% catering to their marks, they're talking about TKO, Ari Emanuel, Nick Khan. Bro, the average person does not know who these people are. You know, again, on Vince's dime, these people are not going to be mentioned. You're not taught, like Ben said, unless Ari Emanuel is going to be booked in a match or the next GM, you're not mentioning these people because nobody knows who they are. And like I said, these things are adding up of what would have never flown with Vince, that they just keep adding week after week after week, Stevie.
Yeah, they don't know, and nor should the fans even care who those names are, because how are they going to be paid off on TV? There's one more thing in the confusion between Rocky being a babyface and a heel. He also announced before he brought Cody out that WrestleMania 42 is going to be in New Orleans.
Right.
So they're going to boo. You know, you see what I mean? You're bringing WrestleMania back to New Orleans. We love you. We love The Rock in general. Disney movie. Then the Cody stuff is very, very confusing. I would say he might think he's a heel, because I don't know if you saw the ratio of the Snow White trailer with like 1.3 or 1.4 million dislikes.
Yeah.
So maybe Rock would be a heel doing a Disney movie. It's very much, it feels like everybody just pumping each other up for no good reason. And Cody looks like he's going to cry half the time too. I don't understand that. The emotion of, like, what's the, as Ben says, what's the Sophie's choice you need to make between being a babyface got you the world title.
Right.
So now if you lost the title and Rock is playing the devil in your ear to get the title back, isn't that a lot different than you got everything by being the good guy? Where's the temptation?
Yeah,
you understand what I mean?
And if he is a beloved champion, why would The Rock want to replace him then? I mean, you know, Rock makes it clear he's got stock in the company, he's got ownership in the company, he's on the board of directors, he's got stock options, he's putting Cody over as the people love you as my champion. Cody's doing everything that the company has asked him to do. Why do you want that guy replaced?
The only thing could be is if Rocky thinks he could be a better representative of the company because he owns part of the company, or he's a stockholder. That was the part. There's a weird thing over the past 2 years, last year and this year, with these sudden shifts right before WrestleMania. You notice that?
Yes.
Usually it's cemented right after the Rumble, and we're on the run. And that's what we're building towards. Now we get twists and turns, but not for the benefit of keeping people guessing, okay, well, who's going to win? They're guessing, well, what are the matches?
Right,
like, what are we going to even get?
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know, bro. All I have to say is this: they better be very careful about the way they book this, because if CM Punk turns and he's the corporate champion, bro, they're gonna cheer Punk and boo Cody. Like, I don't know if they realize that or not, but if they try to turn Punk, they're gonna cheer Punk. So, what does that leave? That leaves Seth Rollins. You're gonna turn Rollins heel again for the 93rd time. Who cares? Now, there's a couple of interesting things, Stevie, and one of them I highly doubt. Is Cena the guy that sells out? I can't see Cena his last year in the business being a heel and selling out and leaving that taste in everybody's mouth. I can't see that. Now, Stevie, if they crafted this correctly, okay, and they really knew how to write, bro, the perfect guy that Rock should be talking about is Drew McIntyre. And quite frankly, Stevie, that's really the only thing that could save Drew. They've beaten this guy so many freaking times because he's got the bulletproof. Bro, if anybody wants to join up, with corporate and turn their back on everybody, because I've been effed over so many times, he would be the perfect guy. But Stevie, the problem is exactly like you said. Stuff like this is months and months and months of planning and television. It's not the last minute, okay, man, what are we doing for WrestleMania? We don't have anything.
Yeah. Drew would be great. It'd be great to kind of go full circle with the Chosen One once again and do it right this time.
Yeah.
And maybe even get some shots in advance like they like to do right around WrestleMania time. I don't see it being anybody but Drew. I'm a little scared that it might be Seth Rollins, who's already done the corporate type gimmick with Kane and the J&J security, and he rehashed that. It doesn't make sense.
He did it with Hunter and Stephanie.
Yeah, the whole corporate thing.
Yeah.
The other thing is it's so weird. There's so many different twists and turns. Like you said, you can't turn Cody heel. You could, but you're going to sacrifice a lot of stuff. Punk turning heel will get Punk cheered.
Yep.
Seth turning heel will be, well, you're a Paul Orndorff. You just keep switching back and forth. The only other interesting thing that would be a completely antithesis of what Rock wants, or if you want to turn that guy babyface again, when Kevin Owens goes to say, I can be your corporate champion, and Rock literally says, you wear a t-shirt, you're a fat F, you're this, and and Kevin hits Rock, then you start something with Rocky and Kevin Owens.
Yeah.
The other one that people aren't talking about that I really think would get the most amount of heat, Logan Paul.
Yeah.
You now have a mainstream, somebody very polarizing, but he would be a guy that the belt could help, and he could help the belt by taking it outside of WWE.
All right. So thank you all for staying for that full clip. If you did, I wanted everyone to get the full context. So if you just sort of skipped to get my I need their context, right? So it's a couple things that I want to react to, and then we'll move on. I agree with probably 99% of what was just said from everyone involved there, right? They touched on a lot of the topics that I've already touched with in terms of the booking and the, we're guessing on what the Mania matches leading into Mania. We used to know what Mania was going to look like around Royal Rumble, and we would build those feuds. We don't really have that the last few years. This promo was one of those things where I try to find a positive in it, and I can't see a positive in this promo. None of it makes sense. They make some good points. Ben Hameen made a great point of WWE needs to do a lot more of the show me, don't tell me. So case in point, like he said, with Gunther, instead of Gunther pulling American Alpha, or excuse me, Alpha Academy out to the ring and be like, hey, the reason I chose you, Tozawa, is because I saw you doing TikToks in the back. How about you show Gunther as he's walking into the arena and he's walking past Maxine and Otis and Tozawa doing the TikToks, and maybe he attacks Tozawa backstage, which then leads to a match, right? Show me his visceral disgust to, something like that, right? And so Ben Hameen made a great point there. I think they make a great point there towards the end, what we just heard of turning Punk. I think we'll get the opposite reaction of what they want. They're not going to boo Punk. They're going to cheer Punk, and they're going to boo Cody Rhodes. Because I think the crowd's ready for Cody to lose the title. I'm going to be honest with you. So this storyline's like, so that the first part of React to Me, where we did that fantasy booking, that would sort of justify this, I guess. I don't know, man. This whole thing, The Rock isn't necessary anymore. I don't know. They make a good point of, you mention, it used to be if you mention characters in a show, they had to be in the episode at some point, or you had like a general knowledge of who that person is. If I ask any of you guys listening if you know who Ari Emanuel is, other than the context that Rock told you he was the owner of TKO, you wouldn't know who he was. And so I just, Ben Hameen said, this is sort of like, Hollywood weird, like elite worship. And that's what it felt like. This felt like, The Rock being part of the Hollywood elite, sort of mentioning all his product placements and his movies and Terramana and all of that, and then mentioning some more Hollywood elites, and right, because let's be honest, right? In reality, the reason The Rock is on the board of directors is because he's best friends with Ari and he's best friends with Khan, right? Nick Khan, and they're all in those same Hollywood circles, right? And so that's a whole other debate for another type of show. But going back to sort of like the show me, don't tell me, like you're trying to convince me, and this is where like Wavy D was trying to be like, oh, Rock and Cody has a friendship. Well, none of us know that. We're not in on that part of the story. You have to show me that friendship. Putting two pictures on the screen of your moms hanging out at WrestleMania, that doesn't show me that you two are friends. Right? I don't know. I feel like The Rock has killed the last 365 days of storyline. In the last, like, as we're building it, he's tearing it back down. I don't know. That's how I feel. That's how we'll end on this show. Let me know what you guys think of the episode in the comments. And until then, we'll see you on the next episode. I'm WETOODEEP. And remember, keep calm, slap that meat.
So hit that subscribe, come along for the ride. AEW, WE, we're always on side. From fantasy booking to baddies that slay. Slapping meat wrestling every Tuesday.